They spent over $1.3 billion. They signed world-class players like Paul Pogba, Angel Di Maria, Jadon Sancho, and Harry Maguire. They hired some of Europe's most respected managers, and yet for over a decade, Manchester United have been football's most expensive failure story and the laughingstock of the Premier League. This isn't about bad luck or poor timing. This is a story about how one of football's greatest football clubs sabotaged their own rebuild and why their problems go far deeper than any manager could fix. This is the story of the fall of Manchester United. Chapter 1. When Sir Alex Ferguson retired in May 2013, Manchester United didn't just lose a manager. They lost their entire identity. Ferguson wasn't just a coach, he was the recruitment chief, the scouting director, the tactical genius, and the head coach all rolled into one. His departure exposed a terrifying truth. United had no infrastructure beyond one man. David Moyes inherited a squad that had just won the Premier League, but it was a squad held together by Ferguson's geniuses rather than genuine quality. The panic was immediate. Within months, United were throwing money at problems they didn't even understand. Fellaini for $27 million, a player Moyes knew from Everton who had represented everything United didn't. Juan Mata for $40 million, a brilliant player, but one who didn't fit the direct high tempo United had built their identity on. Then came the Louis van Gaal era, and with it, the most expensive U-turn in football history. Suddenly, United were trying to play tiki-taka. Angel Di Maria arrived for a British record of £59 million, only to look completely lost in a system that required patience over pace. Memphis Depay cost £25 million and just never adapted to the Premier League's intensity. But the real stamp of the era was the pursuit of players for the sake of it. Bastian Schweinsteiger, a Bayern Munich legend, but he was clearly past his prime, arrived as if reputation alone could solve United's midfield problems. However, it could not. Every signing seemed to contradict the last. There was no vision or no understanding of what Manchester United football should look like in the modern era. They were buying names, not building a team. Chapter 2. If the Ferguson era ended with panic, the Ed Woodward takeover was defined by a far more damaging approach: marketing over football. Woodward, an investment banker by trade, saw Manchester United as a brand first and a football club second. His philosophy was simple: sign the biggest names, generate the most headlines, and let the football sort itself out. The numbers were staggering. Paul Pogba returned for £89 million, making him the world's most expensive player at the time. Alexis Sanchez earned more per week than some clubs' entire wage bill. But for all the commercial success, United's revenue continued to soar. However, the football remained broken. Woodward's approach revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of modern football. In his mind, talent plus talent equaled success. But football doesn't work like mathematics. Pogba was undoubtedly gifted, but he needed the right system, the right partners, the right coaching to flourish. Instead, he was expected to single-handedly transform United's midfield, while being asked to play 3 different positions, depending on who the manager was that week. The Alexis Sanchez signing perfectly showed the problem with the era. Sanchez was a player at the peak of his powers, but United signed him not because he fit their system, they didn't really have one, but because they could. The wages were astronomical, the expectations were unrealistic, and the results, predictably, were disappointing. While Woodward was chasing galactical signings, rivals like Manchester City and Liverpool were building squads with clear identities. Pep Guardiola didn't just buy the best players available, he bought the players who fitted his system. And Jurgen Klopp identified exactly what Liverpool needed and went after those specific profiles. Meanwhile, United were still operating like it was 2003. Chapter 3. The most damaging aspect of United's post-Ferguson era wasn't the money wasted, it was the complete lack of clear path. Every new manager arrived with a completely different vision, requiring a complete squad overhaul each time. Van Gaal wanted possession-based football, and signed players like Daley Blind, technically able, but lacking the physicality that had defined United. Jose Mourinho wanted defensive stability, and brought in players like Eric Bailly and Nemanja Matic. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer promised a return to the Ferguson way, with the pace and power, leading to signings like Daniel James and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Each transition was like starting from scratch. Van Gaal's possession players couldn't adapt to Mourinho's direct approach. Mourinho's defensive signings were too slow for Solskjaer's counter-attack in football. And when Erik ten Hag arrived with his Ajax-influenced pressing game, half the squad was again not able to adjust. The most expensive victim of this chaos was Harry Maguire. Signed for $80 million at the cornerstone of Solskjaer's defense, he was perfect for a deep defensive line, but completely exposed in Ten Hag's high-pressing system. One manager's solution became the next manager's problems. The result was a squad that looked expensive on paper, but made no sense on the pitch. Players who thrived under one system no longer fit in the next. Chapter 4: Tactical Misfits. The individual stories of United's sign-ins reveal the deeper structural problems. Take Jadon Sancho, a 73 million pound winger who had torn apart the Bundesliga with Borussia Dortmund. On paper, he was exactly what United needed: pace, creativity, goals from wide areas. But Sancho's success at Dortmund came in a specific system. He played with overlapping fullbacks who provided width when he drifted inside. He had a strike partner in Erling Haaland, who occupied defenders and created space. However, at United, he was asked to provide the width himself, while playing with inconsistent fullbacks and constantly changing strike partners. The same pattern repeated across the squad. Donny van de Beek was perfectly fit for Ajax's system, but he couldn't adapt to the Premier League's more rigid positional play. Antony's direct run-in worked brilliant in the Eredivisie, but struggled against more organized Premier League defenses. The timing was equally problematic. United consistently signed players at the wrong stage of their careers or market cycles. They paid premium prices for players who were either past their peak or hadn't adapted to the Premier League's demands, while rivals like Liverpool signed Mohamed Salah from Roma for £36 million and turned him into one of the world's best wingers. United were paying similar fees for players who had never reached those heights. The difference wasn't just in scouting, it was having a clear plan for how each player would fit into the team long term. Chapter 5: Cultural Reset. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of United's decline wasn't tactical or financial, it was cultural. Ferguson had built a winning mentality that rang through every aspect of the club. Players arrived at Old Trafford expecting to win trophies. They were surrounded by winners who wouldn't accept anything less than exceptional. The culture died with Ferguson's departure, and despite multiple promises of cultural resets, it was never properly rebuilt. Instead, United became a place where talented players stopped developing. The pressure to succeed was still there, but the directions and the expectations weren't clear. And it wasn't just one coach or one player. The true problems came from how the club was run. United kept blaming different people. First the manager, then the players, and even the owners. While teams like Man City and Liverpool were focused on building strong, winning environments with clear goals and shared responsibility. Ten Hag's arrival in 2022 promised another cultural reset, but the same patterns emerged. Initial optimism, big money signings, brief improvements, and then the inevitable decline as systematic problems reasserted themselves. The truth is, culture cannot be bought, it has to be built. And building culture requires time, consistency, and a clear vision that extend beyond individual managers or players. Manchester United's $1.3 billion failure story isn't about the money, it's about the absence of a plan. While their rivals were building sustainable models for success, United were chasing quick fixes and headlines. The Ferguson era ended over a decade ago, but United are still trying to recreate it rather than building something new. Until they develop a clear identity, a consistent philosophy, and a culture that prioritizes long-term success over short-term fixes, the expensive failures will continue. In football, as in life, you cannot buy your way out of a crisis of identity. Manchester United learned that lesson the hard way. $1.3 billion worth of a hard way. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe because again, it takes a while to make these videos. As always, I'm Aiden Castro. See you tomorrow.